Hello, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates, and we tried mightily to go live tonight with the stream, and we just had technical issues. It's sort of complicated, so apologies to all. We're going to still have our show. We're just going to have it on a little bit later. I've had a rough week with technology. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I've got two guests in the green room. It's Frick and Frack I've got here. Uh, Jerry Wise is going to start us out, and he lives far away, and he needs to get down to business. I'm just going to let him have my chair. So, Jerry, say what you came here to say.
Well, good evening. Though it may be any time of day for you if you're watching the video. And we were trying to do a live broadcast, and it just doesn't look like live is going to work tonight. So we're going to do a recorded broadcast, and thought that might be of help to you. And I had some clients who had asked me some questions, and I promised them that I would respond and share with them some information regarding growing up in a narcissistic home. And having narcissistic parents or parent. And the clients and I were talking about how adult children of narcissists, much like adult children of dysfunctional families, tend to overfeel or feel too much. And they get overwhelmed and overflooded with feelings. And they have too much feeling going on inside, too much emotional reactivity, which is a flooding and an over reaction of our system, that fight or flight or stabilize or freeze, and that there's too much reactivity that's happening. Also, because our own subjectivity has been broken by the narcissistic parent, and that broken subjectivity is the broken sense of gut of what we know is right, or intuition. That's kind of subjectivity, kind of falls within those realms. And for the narcissistic parent, your sense of right or wrong, or good or bad, or what's right or what's healthy or logical or rational is broken because they are continually breaking that subjectivity, that what you're thinking, feeling, and believing is not true, but what I'm thinking, feeling, believing is what's right. Do not trust your own sense of gut and your own sense of knowing. Much like, say, an adult, a child who grows up in an alcoholic family, they know something's wrong and they wonder why their parents is acting that way. Or they wonder, why are my parents acting differently than Johnny's parents? You are not to have that awareness. That subjectivity is wrong. That sense of gut and knowing that there's something very dysfunctional about this. Because kids know when things aren't right. But that is either beaten out of them, coerced out of them, disparaged out of them, guilted out of them, shamed out of them, so that they cannot trust their own sense of subjectivity. And so when we don't have a sense of our own sense of gut or knowing, then we have a lot more reactivity, and again, we have a lot more of emotional flooding that occurs as a result of that. So we tend to live a life in which feelings are always flooding us. And in fact, if they flood so much, then we become dissociative. Then we become where we must leave reality. We must leave this experience because those feelings are way too intense and way too much for us. Maybe I can talk to you about who the narcissist is. And, a narcissist is, someone who cannot control their own reactivity or their own overfeeling except through passing the hot potato or and using the Jedi mind trick, which is basically they wave their hand and say, your subjective reality is wrong, mine is right. And then we have a battle of subjectivity. And that battle of your gut is wrong. And that
It's right here.
you have that battle between the child and the parents and knowing what is right or wrong. The when we have grown up with a narcissistic parent, we then experience the rejecting, the belittling, diminishment. We have induced shame and reactivity within us. We are objectified as children. Our subjectivity is messed with and discounted, and then we are objectified in that we are just objects to be used within the family system. We also experience developmental trauma in which that occurs over and over again and throughout our development. And every time we need to accomplish those tasks in development, we don't have the support. We have dysfunctional parents occurring, and we have a family that's not supportive of our developmental growth. So what do we do? And I thought I'd give you some helps, just some brief helps here. My friend Andy, who's one of our therapists here at Family Tree, he's going to be joining us for the broadcast tonight. Let me give you some few things to think about, and one of them is healing through adjusting down. Since we have this intensity of emotional flooding, this reactivity, and always these emotions churning, because that was what was normal growing up, we can heal through adjusting down. And that would be taking the rage, for example, and turning it into anger. Taking the worthlessness and turning it into flawed. And if you notice, we're adjusting down from the intensity down to something a little less catastrophic, a little less extreme. And we take utter rejection and move it to ignored. We take the toxic shame that we had experienced and we move it to our narcissistic abuser being and parent being painfully flawed, of moving overwhelmed with swallowing insane reality to this is a very sick but another point of view. And so we're adjusting down the intensity. Now, if you notice, the alternatives I gave you were not all in the healthiest place to be. But we have to go through transitions from the extreme rage. The only way you can deal with rage is to turn it into anger. And then you work on your anger and turn that into the next less intense experience, and we keep moving that down, and that's the adjustment in healing. And I think that helps folks who have intense feelings. So what can you do? You can affirm your intuition and gut and your subjectivity. That was disaffirmed all the way through your growing up. Now you can begin to affirm that. Become a new parent to your inner child. Take responsibility for that parenting. And what I mean by take responsibility, I mean stop abandoning yourself. And that's what we tend to do over and over again as we were abandoned by our narcissistic parents. Stop living, acting, and loving like an object. We were objectified, now we're objects. And so we live like one, we act like one, we love like one. And you can see how we can love like an object. In other words, I'm only valuable if I can do something of worth. They don't really love me for just who I am, they love me for what I can do. That would be objectifying someone. and objectifying love. Start adjusting down. We're trying to slowly close the valve on those intense feelings. And that doesn't mean at all that I mean we shut down our feelings. Feelings and emotional reactions are two different things in my mind. And I'm talking about the emotional reactivity. Feelings are very natural, normal, but they really, feelings and emotional reactivity are not the same thing. And maybe I'll get a chance to explain that more at some later broadcast that we have. Stop giving those overwhelming reactivity or reactive feelings and fears so much power. We give them so much power, we feel we can do nothing about them. And that's not true. We can begin to work on not giving them so much power. Focusing on the downsides of not feeling those intense feelings. If I don't feel those intense feelings, what would be the downside of that? How would that cause me difficulties or problems? For example, if I stop feeling rage about my physically abusive narcissistic father, if I stop feeling that rage, then I fear I will have the downside of having no father at all. I will have to stop blaming. I will have to start healing. I won't get my victimhood strokes and victimhood stroking if I give up that rage. And so we have to look at the downsides as to not having those intense reactivities. And then we need to go from walling off, which we've done as children of narcissistic parents, that we have walled off our feelings, we've walled off the world, we've walled off relationships, we've walled off trusting others, to moving from walling off to beginning to open small windows in those walls. And those tend to be more tolerable and more able for adult children of alcoholics to do, rather than open a whole drawbridge or gate to the fortress or to the wall. It's a lot easier to start with some windows. So those are some of the things I wanted to share with you tonight. It has been a joy to be with you tonight. Sorry we couldn't do the live broadcast. I hope this has been a help to you this evening. I know Mark has some things he wants to share with you, and I know Andy's going to do that. I'm going to take my leave, and thank you for having me on tonight, Mark.
Well, Jerry, thank you for being on. I wish we were live because people could applaud via their messaging. Come on over, Andy. Thanks, Jerry.
Bye, Jerry.
Everybody, this is Andy Holzman.
Hi.
And I know that many of you have watched his videos. Show them the tie, Andy, the whole McGillicuddy there. There it is. Andy wore the tie today, and we were real disappointed we didn't get to the live show because he wanted to show his tie. But I've worked with Andy since 1987.
Mm-hmm.
We both started working when we were 3 months old.
That's right.
At an agency downtown. So, Andy, tell a little bit about your story and what brought you to be a therapist at Family Tree.
Right. How I think about this is I didn't grow up in a narcissistic family, but I had some trauma and loss when I was young. My father died when I was 10 years old, and that was quite a shock. All of a sudden, you're going along and everything's seemingly fine, and then there's this big break and this big shock. And the way I took care of myself from that trauma was to retreat and to draw and to write somewhat, but mostly I drew, and I tried to take care of myself. I tried to figure out a way to deal with the feelings that I had, which were never really talked about or encouraged. My mother certainly didn't know how to do that. So I tried to figure out what could I do. And early on, I was reading self-help books, and self-help books in the 1960s were not as existent as they were now, but I read case studies. I read, the 50-Minute Hour or Sybil or I don't know, Joey the Mechanical Boy about autism. I remember those stories in those books. I tried to connect to emotion, and artwork was cartooning was my main way to do it. And in doing that, I found solace, and I found ways to express myself. And like I said, I pulled back from friends. I pulled back for a long time because I felt weird. I felt strange. I didn't know anyone else who didn't have both parents. I didn't know anyone at that time. All of my friends, classmates, had two parents. Divorce wasn't as prevalent. Death wasn't talked about and really kind of in my life in that way, other than my own father. So that trauma marked me and changed me for the good in some ways, because it got me on this lifelong journey to figure myself out, and got me into being a therapist. And actually, by education, I'm an art therapist because art was so important to me. What I wanted to talk about was, well, at first I started working with children because I think that was my way to heal myself. And then when we started having children, my wife and I, that was too difficult. So being at Family Tree, what I love working with couples and love working in relationships. And I find that very interesting. You want to say something more?
No.
Okay. So when Jerry was talking about reactivity, and reactivity in relationships is sometimes a way to prevent intimacy. Couples, people, individuals in a relationship find it difficult to be close. Closeness is scary, vulnerability is scary, and reactivity, either reactivity in terms of shutting down or reactivity in terms of blowing up and attacking one another, can prevent closeness and can prevent real intimacy. And so when couples come in, usually they're coming in because they are disconnected. Either they're disconnected, and most of the time people are disconnected and they don't talk to each other. They're so hurt and angry with each other, they're just shut down. Other times they're fighting a lot, but most of the time people are shut down. And they need solutions, or they need thoughts on how to figure out a way to talk to each other or to be close again. And our Family Tree model is that the person that you're with, the person that you're married to, is there in your life to help you work through your family of origin issues. The very things, whether it was a narcissistic family or an alcoholic family or a family with trauma and loss, you're dealing with some family of origin issue that you have not resolved. And you find this perfect person for you. Perfect is, in quotes in a sense, perfect person who helps you grow. And it may be a very difficult and chaotic growth, and it may not be the person you stay with for your entire life. Sometimes that person is just in your life to give you a voice, to get away from them, and sometimes they're in your life to help you not run away from things and stay with something and be committed to something. So it just depends on how healthy you are or how healthy you can pick that person. If you're replaying some issues that were incredibly traumatic and incredibly unhealthy, you may not stay with that person because they may be very unhealthy. When people come in, my agenda, my thought is always, okay, well, this person has picked this other person to be with, and what's that about for them? How can they talk about or understand what's going on with them and be able to have a voice, be able to have a connection to those family of origin issues that, like for myself, the loss, the trauma, the abandonment that marked me, created in me a need to be very codependent and to be very connected. and to not really have a voice. And luckily, my wife is different enough from me and has boundaries in a different way that has forced me over the years of our relationship to have that voice and to stand up for myself and to take care of myself. And that is a benefit, even though it's a hard-won benefit because it's not comfortable. So relationships are very interesting. Relationships, I think, are just, to me, the most interesting thing right now because of the different people who enter into them, and sometimes they're just not aware of what they're bringing to that relationship and how their shut down, their cut off, or their explosions create a lack of closeness and a lack of intimacy. And the work of being able to validate what goes on in yourself and have that voice, I think, is very important. Thank you for listening. I'm Andy Holzman. Here's Mark.
How did you do that without any notes? You just said that off the top of your head.
I think after being here for 25 years, Mark is a very good teacher. He's, someone who has really influenced my thinking about relationships, and it's really helped my relationship as well. It's helped my individual growth as well. So being here is an education in itself, of course.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for talking tonight, Andy.
My pleasure.
Love the tie. Have a good night.
You too. Hope the
Not so
technology gets better.
Yeah,
Take
thank
care,
you.
guys.
Thank you. Good night. So, I guess the live feed chat is still going, and so I do have some questions to answer for people. I wanted to talk a little bit about relapse tonight, was what I had planned on sharing. With PTSD, you don't just get it and then you get better and you're forever better. It's a little bit like having diabetes. I've discovered that if you don't continue to take care of yourself, you can have really bad stuff happen. And I've got some drawings here that sort of talk about why relapse happens. So the first one, this is us when we're shattered. And when you're shattered, many of you know that you're just desperate for answers. You're desperate for encouragement. You're desperate for therapy. You stay up and watch live feeds at 10 o'clock at night. You pay money you don't have for therapy. You do meditation, you do yoga, you do whatever the hell it takes to survive. It's all about surviving. When I was in the treatment center last year, it came to be yoga night, and I didn't feel like doing yoga, but I made myself go because I was this guy. Now, this drawing is what I will call it mature recovery or effective recovery. This represents your psychological defense mechanisms. Here, you're just squirting blood psychologically everywhere. Here, it's a marathon race, and you are feeling your pain, working on your pain, and you're not shattered anymore, but you're effectively healing your wounds. So it's a better pace. This is frenetic and overwhelming. This is sustainable, and you're running a marathon at a good pace. However, when you do all the healthy stuff like EMDR and going to on-site and reading lots of good books and watching YouTube videos and going to 12-step meetings and doing yoga and doing meditation and really practicing self-care, you get better. You go from here to here, and this is what I call relapse, where you feel so much better, then you don't have as much urgency to do your meditation. You don't have urgency maybe to do spiritual work. You don't have as much urgency to just do the work on yourself because you're not driven by pain, because you're not feeling a lot of pain. But if you stop doing those things, you can start having some of this stuff come back, is what I've been learning in my personal life. So, yesterday was a rough day with technology, and it's continued to today. I had been down here because I was feeling like Superman. A lot of you saw that I got this tattoo on my arm, it's Superman logo, because I was feeling great. I was feeling strong, and I realized how far I'd come, that I'd gone from here, and I didn't realize, but this is dangerous territory. This is area where you've got to stay in touch with yourself and your need to do the work, because if you don't stay in touch, you can regress. So yesterday our website crashed. We have two websites, and one is the one that I sell my books on and videos on. And it's not that big a deal. I don't even know if anybody was buying any books yesterday, but it brought up in me a sense of feeling out of control. The technology gremlins got into our constant contact account and wiped out a bunch of autoresponder emails that you guys probably hate getting anyway. And that happened. And then tonight we tried to do the live stream show and couldn't get it to work. But yesterday, rather than being a grown-up man and just saying, it's a rough day with technology, let me contact my web guy and we'll get it worked out. And I did contact my web guy, and we did get it worked out. It's all functional again. It's the thing about technology, is eventually things will start working again if you are diligent and stay with it and you have some patience. But I really crashed and burned because I hadn't been doing the stuff. So I get up this morning early, and I go up to my writing studio, and the sun is streaming in. It's a beautiful day. I can look out over the little pond across the street, and I did my meditation, and I read my little meditation book, How to Get Your Wiggle Back. And I read a book that I want to recommend to everybody. This is the new edition of Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. I am in an effort to get out of this place here. I'm going to be taking a week off starting on Thursday, and I'm going to the beach. I'm going to read Pete Walker's book. I'm going to do meditation every day. I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to do a lot of deep breathing. I'm going to do a lot of praying. I'm going to get myself right. Because PTSD is scary. It's scary stuff. It can take you out. It can keep you from focusing. It can keep you from being effective at your job. It's really painful stuff. So if you find yourself starting to have symptoms again, I was starting to have my hands shake again. And after I got the bad news about the website crashing, I was meeting a friend at the gym, and I went and played with my beastly 28-year-old basketball friends, and my hands were shaking. and I had a really rough day on the basketball court. You can't shoot 3-pointers with shaky hands. And I think I threw 3 air balls. And they weren't even close. And the guys were just sort of looking at me like, dude, what's wrong with you? But it's a journey. And thankfully, if you get off the path, you don't have to stay off the path forever. So again, I've started this book by Pete Walker, and I just really want to recommend it to if you haven't read this book, you really need to. If you have complex PTSD, if you have narcissistic abuse syndrome, and I feel like I'm right on the verge of having a feast when it comes to feeding my recovery. So that's what I wanted to share about relapse. I can't recommend it. It hurts. Don't do it. It'll cause you to shoot air balls. You don't want to be shooting air balls. So there's a couple questions that have come in I want to respond to. Are you going to come on a little bit? You up to it? Yeah, come on. Why don't you come on? So Rinda Hall is here, and Rinda Hall has been feeling sick and sort of puny. My grandmother says when you don't feel good, you feel puny.
I do feel puny.
Yeah, and then you couldn't get the thing to work.
Then I couldn't get it to work, yeah.
Did that make you feel punier?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I understand. I was feeling puny about the website issues yesterday. But so Mel had a question, and she wrote, why is it so hard to reclaim the self when your parent is the narc? And does your birthplace, birth order in the family contribute to how narcissistic siblings are created? Tell you what, I'm going to take a stab at that, and you can come in and then clean up whatever's left.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Because you might have had some thoughts about that. The first thought I had, Mel, thank you for the question, was, hey, it's hard to reclaim yourself when, the pain that really threw me, that caused me to go into narcissistic abuse syndrome, wasn't from my parent. It was, but the person who kicked it off and triggered it in me was somebody I was engaged to. So it's hard to reclaim the self when you're reenacting your family of origin issues in a relationship, because it digs up the pain that your parent caused. Andy Holzman was here a little bit ago, and he was talking about how we pick the right person and we reenact our family of origin. But the thing is not all of us are created equal. Some of us have narcissistic parents, and then this is how it works, people. You're going to be attracted. If you had a borderline or a narcissist for a parent, you're going to walk into a room and you'll know who the narcissists are because you're going to be attracted to them.
Yeah.
That's how you know, which really sucks.
It does.
I mean, I wish it wasn't that way, but it's sort of that way. So the other part of their question was, does birth order in the family contribute to how narcissistic siblings are created? I'm going to say I don't think it does, because there's maybe different types of narcissists. If you have an older sibling, you might get somebody a little Donald Trumpish like, not getting into politics, but a little grandiose, a lot grandiose, into power and control. But in my family system, some of the narcissistic traits were pretty evenly distributed. Not so much in the youngest one, but everybody else got a few narcissistic traits. So I'm not sure that birth order really contributes. I think you can find narcissistic traits probably in every role in the family. So what are your thoughts about this one, Rinda?
Well, I think that you're absolutely right, that it depends on what role that you're playing, within the family. So I think the golden child tends to be a little more narcissistic than the scapegoat, because the scapegoat's already detached. And so and they're getting blamed for everything. So, but everybody has a role within the family.
So, but you're saying the golden child would tend to be more narcissistic.
Have more narcissistic
Yeah.
tendencies than, say, the scapegoat child or the lost child, either one. And the reason for that is because there is a sense of, I think, entitlement for the golden child, because they're getting all the best of everything. They're getting the attention. They're getting all these things, and so that builds a sense of entitlement
Right,
within that child.
right.
And so it breeds the narcissistic tendencies more so than it would in, say, the scapegoat or the lost child.
So I'm second of 7,
Mm-hmm.
and I certainly wasn't the golden child, and I wasn't the scapegoat. I would say I was a really strong lost child, very, very lost. I think I had some family hero stuff more in terms of rescuing. I was the parent of my infant sister. What family role did you have?
Well, I was the lost child, and I played too, actually. I was the lost child and the scapegoat.
A little bit of scapegoat thrown
Yeah,
in, huh?
yeah, I was.
Okay.
So that's my take on that, and so I don't really think that birth order has anything to do with it. Even though, I was the youngest, and a lot of tendencies are in families is either the oldest or the youngest is usually the golden child.
But the oldest or the youngest they're different kind of goal. One is
Right.
John F. Kennedy,
Right.
I'm really cool, and the other one is, enmeshed and cute and funny
Right,
and
exactly.
center of attention,
Right.
spoiled, and that kind of thing.
Right, and that would be the younger. That would be the youngest.
Right. So I've got another question here. This actually came in a while ago from somebody named Sharon. She said, Mark, can you help me out with this question? I just discovered that my ex-narc moved his girlfriend / victim in with him because he cannot be alone. Will he treat her better than he treated me and his 3 ex-wives? I feel sick thinking that he's going to treat her really, really well. Well, sometimes you get layups and slam dunk opportunities, and obviously everybody knows except Sharon, because your abandonment issues have been tickled. So there's a part of you that says, well, maybe it was just me. Maybe it's my fault that I was treated so bad. Maybe he's really capable of love. But the truth is, he's going to treat her just the way he treated you and those other 3 ex-wives. That's a lot of ex-wives, So what are your thoughts about this one?
Well, it said 3 ex-wives. So, we're going to go through the phases. He's going to start with the love bombing, of course, and then the next phase is they start to devalue, and then, of course, love bombing again, and then devalue, and then love bombing, and then devalue, and then ultimately it's going to end up as a discard, because we, as we've educated ourselves, narcissists aren't really capable of loving because they don't love themselves. They're not, they have no insight, and they're not capable of that insight as far as anyone that I've met.
Right. I felt initially after I was shattered like I had sort of lost, like this borderline narcissist was having a real addictive, sexually addictive relationship with a fellow narcissist. Just 2 monsters, addicted to each other over a 6.5 year period. And I thought, here I've lost when you're freshly shattered, it feels like, you're so needy, it feels like love to you. But the truth is, these two monsters deserve each other, and I won. I got the narcissist out of my house, and I got to move on with my life. And these two people are just going to devour each other, and they sort of deserve each other, I think. But I don't believe that they're going to be capable of intimacy and love and commitment and respect. That's just not who they are. So, yeah, there's going to be a train wreck if it hasn't already happened. So, got another question here. It's a little bit of a long one. It's from Joan, and she suggested a discussion topic. She writes, I've encountered a number of people who are almost pathological to various degrees about other people knowing their business. Some even go so far as to tell unnecessary major lies about themselves, like having 5 children when they don't have any children, to keep other people from having a clear sense of their lives that they're actually leading. Others, like my diagnosed bipolar sister, who has refused further diagnostics and medical treatment for their condition, display what I discern as a paranoia about other people, even family members, knowing her daughter's business, that she is getting married soon, and any details, even anonymously presented ones, about the family dysfunction and the physical abuse that we both grew up with. What is up with these people? Joan asks. Any insight you have that can help me understand them better and the kinds of boundaries I need to maintain in dealing with them would be very appreciated. Quite frankly, I feel concerned, stressed, and burdened by keeping track of what I can and cannot say about them in communications with others. So I think we know the kind of people that Joan is talking about here. They're just really freaky about self-disclosure. They don't want anybody knowing their business. And it is paranoia. Erickson talks about the stages of development, and one of the early ones is called basic trust versus basic mistrust. And if you were abused or abandoned very early, you have a sense of basic mistrust of the universe. And it's a very deep wound. You know what's weird is I was abandoned very severely, and I ended up with trusting too much, covering it over with counterdependency and grandiosity and trusting people that you ought not be trusted.
And I was just the opposite. I was abandoned, and I don't trust anybody.
You don't trust anybody?
I don't.
Has that gotten better?
A little, but it's taken a lot of work, but I still don't trust the universe. I mean, I don't.
You don't come across as somebody who doesn't trust. You hide it.
I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're one of these people Joan's talking about.
No, All right.
I'm
not insecure. I mean, it's just, but I've been, I don't know, I guess my trust issues are because I've been hurt too many times. And so, I've learned to trust my own feelings, where used to I couldn't even trust those, and I learned to trust my gut. And I used to ignore that. I used to ignore the signs. And so, but people's actions speak a lot louder than their words, and that's what I've learned to trust.
Yeah. So, yeah, to be discerning and to be wise and to protect yourself, that's all good. But I don't see you as being paranoid.
Oh no, I'm not paranoid,
No.
but I just don't.
you've got some bruises on
I do
your
have
trust
bruises.
issues.
I do have
All
bruises
right.
with my trust.
So I guess the feedback, Joan, I would give to you is be true to yourself, be authentic, don't tiptoe around on eggshells, worried about this person's paranoia or that person's paranoia. Now if they communicate to you a specific boundary about some kind of security issue, respect it, but there's a fine line between respecting somebody's request and being codependent. And I wish I could paint that line for you a little bit more distinctly, but start with being authentically yourself and trust the universe. The universe overall actually is a good place and a safe place. It's safe enough. It's not perfect by any stretch. Bad things, do happen to good people, but don't be stepping around and doing a song and dance for paranoid people.
No.
But if they specifically ask you a specific thing and you can do that without compromising your sense of self, then yeah, go ahead and do it. But you might point out, dude, you're a little freaky. You got some trust issues with the universe. I will, do the thing that you asked me to do, but it's a little irrational, but I'll go along. So I hope that helped, Joan. That's a good topic of discussion because you want to keep people's confidences, but you don't want to join them in their craziness. So there's a fine line in there. So I'm headed to the beach. I'm headed to Myrtle Beach, my favorite beach. I hope that Hurricane Matthew. Matthew doesn't sound like a good hurricane name for some reason. I don't know why. It just doesn't.
Well,
Maybe I'm still in that sexist mentality where they always named them after women.
Well, see, yeah.
Did they just start naming them after men in recent years?
And recently, yeah.
Yeah, because it used to.
Not long ago.
Okay.
I don't know.
There was Hugo.
You can Google it. See how
Yeah,
long
yeah.
ago they started using masculine names
But
as well.
Anyway,
Now they alternate.
do they really?
Mhm.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
Just blame all the bad shit on women. That's not right.
No, that's not.
So I hope Matthew.
We don't cause it all.
Right. I hope he hasn't disturbed my beach in Myrtle Beach. I haven't been contacted by the condo place, so I'm assuming everything is good. So I'm going to read Pete Walker's book, which I again will plug and recommend.
I ordered mine and it will be in Friday.
You rock. You rock. This is solid stuff. I wanted to read. This is how the guy introduced himself. I just love it. I love how he has a picture of himself. By the way, he did the artwork on the cover. So this is a very talented man. But he says, Pete Walker, M.A., has a great deal of recovery from his own complex PTSD. He didn't go on and on about where he went to school and what his master's degree is, and nobody cares, all right? He said, I am in recovery. I have it. I've done the work. I dig that. I love that. He's been a therapist for 35 years, and he practices in the San Francisco Bay Area as a licensed marriage and family therapist. His son, Jaden, is an unlicensed fourth grader who is growing up and thriving in a house that is a home.
I love that.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
He's an unlicensed fourth grader. So this guy's funny. I read the first part of the introduction, and he's a really good writer. This isn't just about PTSD. This is a talented writer who's sharing what he knows from his own recovery work and from his work with clients.
And if you Google Pete Walker, you'll actually find some really great articles online that he's also written
Right.
on different topics.
Yeah, I was noticing that a lot of people had been helped from his writings online who hadn't even read the book yet. So the plan is for Miss Rinda Hall here, and for Karen Henry Smith, and for Jennifer Dorr to have a show, a live stream next week. Should the gods of technology bless us so kindly, 8:30 next Tuesday night, those three lovely ladies will bring the knowledge and the insight to you. And who knows, Jerry Wise may have a few minutes to throw your way as well. Polly and Zara, the Wonder Dogs, might be here. I don't know. But I will not be here next week. I do want to say, for those who haven't been taking in Renda and Karen and Jennifer's work on video, I've been stepping back from making videos because, getting back to my introduction here, when somebody is here, they shouldn't ought to be making tons of videos. I can barely do these live or not so live streams. I have to work on balance and serenity and self-care. So I'm taking a break from making videos. I sure love making them, but I sat the trauma treatment team down. And I said, this is your moment to shine. Jerry's about ready to unleash a whole bunch of videos before too very long. But right now the spotlight is on you three ladies, and go kill it. And they have been killing it. Our numbers are going up without Mark Smith and without Jerry Wise making videos. Numbers going up because the newer therapists are killing it. So
Thanks.
good work out of you. You got anything else you want to share with the people?
No, I don't think so. Not tonight. Just
All right.
take care of yourselves. Practice self-care. That's what I'm going to go home and do. I think that's probably what you're going to go home and do.
Go home and sleep.
That's exactly what I'm going to go do.
Yeah. So I didn't get to look at the stream of the text, but people were chatting back
People
and
were
forth.
chatting just a little bit back and forth. I have scheduled our next live stream. It's up. The schedule is there.
So people showed up and they were hungry. They were ready to eat, and they didn't get no food.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
But I love that you showed up, and I love that you were ready to eat, and I love that you guys are supportive of our work. So thank you for watching. God
Thanks.
bless.